Well, now we get to talk some uranium. I've been eager to get some uranium into the show all day long, and now we're finally there. We're going to have Chris Frostad. He's president and CEO of Purepoint Uranium there in the world's most prospective uranium region, Saskatchewan's Athabasca Basin. He is going to be in conversation with Andrew Cheatle. Andrew is an accomplished mining executive, geoscientist, and non-executive director. He's a graduate of the Royal School of Mines right here in London. He always likes to be back, I know. His international career has successfully encompassed operations, mine development, and exploration in both the senior and junior mining sectors. He was an early adopter and published thought leader on ESG as it relates to mining, and believes in the industry's potential to have a positive role in community and national development. Andrew, I'll let you introduce Chris. Why don't you come up and take the stage?
Very good.
Excellent. Well, Chris, welcome.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Say welcome to the traditional land of the Royal School of Mines. But, whilst we were getting ready for this talk, we're going to just jump straight in. I was really taken by your enthusiasm for the sector and for uranium. It's a subject I personally don't know a lot about, and I guess I'm not alone with that. But before we go there, we need to introduce you. You didn't start off in mining.
No, actually, if you go back far enough, I'm a tax accountant, but...
oh dear.
Yeah, exactly. I spent about 15, 20 years in tech. I was selling PCs back when Charlie Chaplin was the spokesmodel for IBM, so went through, I got out shortly after the internet hit, but I got involved with Purepoint with my brother. My brother's the geologist in the family, close to 20 years ago, and it's been very different ride for sure.
You've enjoyed it?
I've enjoyed it a lot. It's different geeks, but everybody's looking for a big win at the end of the day.
Fantastic. As you say, you are the CEO of Purepoint, and you also on your website have an amazing section on uranium markets. So I would say if anybody wants to find out about uranium, they should really go to your website. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that market? I mean, it's out of favor for a long time, of course. The uranium price per pound was about 50-something last year. It's now into the 60s and 80s. Spot price is over $100 per pound. Just a little bit about this market.
It's been on a bit of a roller coaster. The thing with uranium, it is a small market, relatively speaking, compared to gold or coal or something like that. And the pricing on it is not very transparent. About 60% of uranium is traded in long-term contracts directly between producers and utilities. So we don't really have a good call on where the pricing is. Only about 10%, say, of uranium is traded on the spot market, and in fact, there's only a handful of trades done a week. So there's no real exchange for uranium as well. So it's a bit opaque in terms of what we can see. The base case for uranium is pretty simple these days. Over the last 10 years, when uranium was out of favor after the tsunami took out Japan and they turned off about 10% of the world's reactors, and Kazakhstan had been selling a lot of low-cost uranium into the market, there was a big hangover, and the price did go down. I think it was down to about $25, and I think the incentive price is more up in the range of where it is now, the $70 or $80 mark. But during that time, we had a lot of mines shut down, a lot of production shut down. And now what we're seeing is there is a lot of new enthusiasm behind nuclear in general. We're seeing a lot of...
There's been these press releases, I think Microsoft helping to restart 3 mines.
Well, that's on the power side as well. And I mean, people are getting quite interested in nuclear because of stories like that. I mean, in the case of Microsoft, I think they've contracted for a lot of power out of what was 3 Mile Island. The second reactor, the one that didn't go south, closed in, I think, 2019 for economic reasons, but now they've been able to reopen it because of the demand coming out of the tech sector around data centers and a lot of the AI and the power that it takes. But now as we see a lot of reactors now coming online or plan to be coming online, a lot of countries are now getting behind nuclear. It's now the green savior of the planet. We're realizing that we don't have enough fuel because we shut everything down. And that gap is getting wider. There's a lot of geopolitical aspects to that even recently that are driving that supply gap even further.
Do you see these large corporations having their own nuclear power plants, or maybe pebble reactors, things like that?
I don't think so. I think, I think what we're seeing, we're seeing small modular reactors, we're seeing micro reactors you can drag behind a truck. There's a lot of different aspects around the nuclear side and what we're going to be able to do with that. They're going to put a small modular reactor on the moon. So it's very interesting. But in fact, from our point of view, from the uranium side and the fuel side, it probably takes 10 to 15 small modular reactors to use the same amount of uranium as a traditional reactor. And we're just starting to get into the small modular business. So it's not a direct hit to our industry and our sector on the fuel side and the uranium side, but what it does do, they're interesting stories, and it's getting people more and more educated on nuclear in general and where it stands in the world and how we're going to keep using it moving forward.
Yeah, that's right, because when I saw the 3 Mile Island thing, there's everything like BBC, CBC.
Oh, well,
CNN.
it's
just
exciting news.
Just
Yeah.
went through the whole news field.
I don't think we're going to see Amazon buying a mine anytime soon, but
you never know.
You never know.
Never know.
They haven't called me yet. Yeah.
Talking about mines, we've got to talk about your company, Purepoint, and you're based in the Athabasca Basin, Saskatchewan.
Right.
A little bit about Saskatchewan. For many years, it was one of the top, and still is one of the top mining jurisdictions in the world.
Absolutely. Right across the board, not just for uranium.
Yeah.
It's a fabulous jurisdiction to work in. From the uranium side, it's been quite prolific. And we talk about the grade of uranium in the basin, but in fact, over the last 6 decades, I think there's been 38, 39 deposits identified in the basin with an average grade of just shy of 10% each. So it's a bit of a freak show from the grade standpoint. And but we keep finding more. Essentially, every 18 months, we're finding a new deposit, and they're not getting smaller and smaller. The last one that was identified was about 50 million pounds at an average grade of 45%. So it just continues to be fascinating, and certainly from an exploration standpoint, it's a quite exciting place to work.
So that's almost 50% uranium. Some of the other mines in the world, can you just give us like a comparison? How?
Well, generally, uranium around the world is mined at 0.5%, 0.6%, that sort of thing. I mean, a company making mine in the United States, very different play, would be maybe 10 million pounds at 0.15 or something in the 0.5 range. But I mean, it's very different, and it means that that we're looking for something different. That is to say, if it's too low grade, it's not going to get mined in Saskatchewan, even though it might get mined somewhere else on the planet. We work with one of our joint ventures with Cameco and Orano, and I mean, we identified about 15, probably 20 million pounds of uranium at a fairly hefty grade, but they're looking for 100 to 150 at a higher grade. Yeah. So we had to throw that fish back. So it's a very interesting jurisdiction from that standpoint.
Yeah, you mentioned Cameco and joint ventures, and I know you've had quite a number of joint ventures sort of set up. It's a different financing model you have?
Well, very different. We've had to come to the challenge that we're seeing, and I think we're seeing it in a lot of metals, is that disconnect between the commodity price and the equities. They're not always going in the same direction as we'd like, and it's certainly been true in uranium. And on the exploration side, we've actually seen them languishing as the spot price has been going up. And a lot of that is due to the fact that we have more access to capital in the markets these days. We can raise a lot of money, but of course it dilutes the heck out of us over time. And the buoyancy of uranium prices hasn't overtaken that. So it's the real problem in exploration these days, and in development as well, is just access to capital.
Yeah.
And non-dilutive capital. That's really been a chore. And what we've done, which is somewhat distinctive, I guess, these days, is most of our projects now are in joint ventures with, and these are our best projects, not our non-core projects. And more importantly, they're all with major players with strong balance sheets. Cameco,
we've mentioned Cameco, but there's a few others.
Cameco, Orano, Foran Mining we work with out there, and most recently ISO Energy. and which holds that 45% monster we talked about. So what it means, and they're all contributing. They're all contributing financing to these projects and supporting them. We know that they can only support projects that they have, that they believe are prospective. So that sort of justifies these projects. And I think most importantly, we're operating all of these projects on their behalf. So we're the exploration arm on all of these projects. And what it means is, for instance, next year, we will probably be spending about $10 million on these projects. And we only really have to come up with about 3 of that. We also earn management fees, which covers our overhead. So it's a way of really advancing these projects in a way that they need to be advanced. I can tell you that over the last 20 years, there's about $3 billion been spent in exploration in northern Saskatchewan. And we've found $3 billion. And we've found about 700 million pounds of uranium, 6 projects. And if you take a look at them, you can see it takes tens of millions of dollars just to find your discovery hole, let alone what it takes then to turn it into a resource. So these things aren't easily found. They take time. It takes a lot of money, and the market's not letting us do it on our own, right? We need the assistance. We need to work with people with steady balance sheets in a way that's non-dilutive, and in fact, all of these cases, we also have. When we find something, we have a partner who can then move it forward into that next phase of work and development.
What about your partners on the Indigenous side of things there?
Well, it's been interesting in Saskatchewan. It's been always we've worked with all of them over the years. I can say what's changed more recently is they're recognizing they're getting more organized and in a very constructive way. We've always dealt with probably a dozen or more communities up north, and on an individual basis. But they're sort of banding together and dealing with all of the work that's going on there in a more collective fashion, which is it's easier for them, it's easier for us, and it makes sure that we're all sort of aligned in terms of what we're doing and how we're doing it, because they certainly see a lot more people wandering around the woods up there than they have in a while. Yeah. So it's, and they're more concerned about some of the newer entrants who may not be familiar with the communities and how they operate and what their concerns are. So no, there's an ongoing dialogue always with those, and we have agreements in place with those communities as to what we do and how we hire them and how we work with them and their service providers and how we support their concerns.
That's obviously very much the responsible, respectful relationship model works. And are they also coming involved now commercially with you?
Not at our level. I mean, we're in exploration. So, but absolutely, when you talk to some of the developers up there, there's Denison's developing a significant project up there, Next Gen Fission, and for sure they've got very very exhaustive agreements in place that are more commercially focused, as do the Camecos and Oranos of the world.
Yeah, that's actually really good to hear, because I'm going to just look at my notes here very quickly. And Hawker Lake exploration, you've been putting out some results on that.
Which one?
Hawker Lake.
Oh, Hook Lake.
Yeah.
Well, Hook Lake is.
Can you share a little bit on that?
That's the project that we. It sits on the eastern or western side of the province. That's the joint venture we have with Cameco and Orano. We own 21% of that, and they split the remainder. And we've been working with that for quite a while because it sits at the edge of the basin, but it's on trend and right adjacent to Fission's 150 million pounds of uranium, and certainly NextGen's 250 million pounds of uranium, and they're finding more up there. So that area has opened up substantially. Last winter, we discovered a new zone that we're just moving into, and we'll be following up on that this year, and that's a priority to our partners. But the bigger priority actually right now is NextGen has now identified yet another neighboring discovery, and looks like it's growing into quite a significant thing. And it's on the other side of the claim line from where we are, and it trends right up into our property. So our partners are very focused on us dragging a drill up there this winter as well.
I would.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Maybe
Come
we
along.
should do that. I'd like to get there. And what about other future exploration plans? I mean, you've got quite a lot of land, and especially, as you mentioned, ISO energy. So what future exploration plans?
Well, because we just closed that in the last month or so, we've been in a bit of a panic to get our 2025 plans together. Because what that one was, we each took a number of our larger projects and put them together. When we looked at them, we realized we were creating a pretty significant district at the northern end of the mine trend that works on the eastern side of the basin. And so we've taken our projects and put them together. There's about 98,000 hectares of property there, and now we've had to go back and start reconciling and knitting a lot of data together that we've both been working on over the last period of time to come up with a program. And we're meeting actually early next week to finalize our budgets and plans. But we'll be spending about $5 million on those projects in the coming year. Most of it drilling. Most of it around the area are on trend with their hurricane discovery, the big deposit they have up there. And then we'll also be, again, a lot of it is really we want to take our time and knit a lot of this data together and information and reconcile it and make sure we're going after the best stuff. And again, with Cameco and Orano, we're working on our Hook Lake project, which I just mentioned. Neighboring that is another project called Smart Lake. It's a joint venture with Cameco. We own 27% of that. And the last time we drilled there was in 2008. And it was the first time we drilled there. And we did hit mineralization, but things got so exciting over at Hook that everybody dragged all their money over there, and we kind of let it slide for a while. So we're going back there now for the first time in a while. And we're just finishing up some work up there, and we'll be drilling there in January as well. So there's a lot of drilling going on. These are all advanced projects. So we've done a lot of the preliminary work, and they're ready to take a drill.
So when you've got these advanced projects, and as we sort of draw to a close with our time here, what about exits? How do you monetize them? How do your investors?
And so the way we look at it is I mean, we're an exploration company. We're not a mining company. So when the time comes for us to take a resource estimate or a resource and move it further in the process, we have partners who then would pick up the baton and keep running with it at that point. And we can either stay on as a partner and go along for that ride, or we can monetize these assets at that time.
Or could you take maybe some royalties and some production?
So many options.
That's
I tell you,
wonderful.
so many things we could do.
Yeah, that's very, very good. Well, I think this brings us to maybe the last question. What should we look forward to in the next 18 months from you?
Well, I think I mean, we do still have some other very large projects that we're talking to people about, working with us on. But I think what we're going to see over the next year is a lot more consistency in our news flow. We're going to be working on all of these projects right through the year, and I think what you're going to see is a bit of an exploration machine. That's what we're up to. We've got these major projects now that are well advanced, and we're just going to be chugging through these projects and making sure everybody knows where and what we're at and up to. And of course,
you can do that with the Northern Miner.
Well, we always, of course, we always call up our good friends at the Northern Miner.
Yeah. So that gives us a couple of minutes. I do like to give the audience a chance, maybe just for a couple of questions.
Any questions? I'd be curious, Chris, if you could shed any light on changing attitudes amongst governments. When we were down in Washington, D.C. at the Energy Transition Metals Summit, certainly the U.S. government's getting much more serious about uranium. Are we seeing that with the Canadian government as well? Here in the U.K., there's been talk of building a whack of SMRs.
Yeah.
Can you give us, maybe just touch upon America, UK, and Canada?
I don't think we've seen a whole lot of change. I mean, in the United States, the whole nuclear and piece is fairly bipartisan. The DOE actually sits on a lot of resources that I could see that they would probably open up to and get people working on those. But the problem the United States has right now, in general, is the bifurcation of uranium fuel. And that is to say, you've got Kazakhstan who, the United States has about 25% of the world's reactors. Half of their fuel is coming from Uzbekistan, Russia, and Kazakhstan. So the U.S. now has a sanction on Russian fuel, which isn't helping things. Kazakhstan has committed most of their product now to China and Russia. Niger, which I think provides the EU with about 25% of its fuel, is pretty much closed off since the coup they had a little while back, and they've been shutting down mines there. So what's becoming difficult is the United States is losing access to fuel, let alone the price. And they'll be looking a lot more to Canada and to Australia to provide that. Because they really only produce right now about 5% of what they burn domestically. And that is improving greatly. And I think there's a lot of support behind the uranium industry in the United States. And a lot of new operations are opening up, but it's not going to come close to getting what they need going forward. In Canada, it's always been a very uranium forward positive environment to work in. Certainly Saskatchewan has been always very supportive of the industry in general. So we're not seeing any real change in politics there. And as you mentioned, we're seeing a lot more in the EU and a lot more in the UK from the nuclear standpoint. I think as we look forward, it's going to be access to this fuel, because I think the math has proven out that we're not going to have enough. So we can't just keep driving nuclear reactors on forever. It isn't going to work. The tech companies that you talk about, if they haven't got access to fuel, they're not going to turn on a reactor.
So it sounds like being in Saskatchewan, being
the way to be. It's a place to be.
Place to be. You're very much there.
We got it all.
Good.
Yeah.
A great place to finish.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thanks a lot.
Thanks
Andrew.
a lot.
Appreciate it.